Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and for today's card I am using one of the new Pretty Pink Posh stamp sets. This is the Bear Hugs stamp set and it is so cute. So I decided to do some watercoloring with this, and my original idea as I was making this card was to just kind of create a almost like my own pattern paper, like just a pattern background using these little bears and all the little coordinating images. So I have some Canson XL Watercolor paper here, and then I'm just stamping all the little images from this set just kind of randomly across this background with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, because like I said, I plan on watercoloring this, and VersaFine Onyx Black ink is awesome for watercoloring because it's a waterproof ink. So I started stamping this, and as I was stamping it, my original intent was to do everything in kind of like almost like sepia tones, like do them all in different shades of brown. I thought that would look really great. And then I just couldn't do it for the background part of this. I wanted a little bit of color. So my immediate thought was to do blue. And as I was doing this, that's when it started to hit me, kind of after I finished the background area, that it looks like they're in a pool. So we're just going to pretend that these bears are just hanging out in the pool and someone dumped a bunch of jars of honey in it. I don't know. I wasn't going to redo it though after I spent all the time coloring it. So I'm using my Mission Gold watercolors here and one of my silver brushes. I think it's a silver size 6 brush is what I used. So I did my background first because I am finding if I do my backgrounds first, I'm much more comfortable after I've colored the images in. I don't have to stress so much about trying to watercolor around images that I've already spent a ton of time coloring. So like I said, I did the background with the blue, and then I went in to do the different images. So all the little jars, I mixed up kind of a yellowish color to do all these little jars of honey. And then for the bears, I mixed up, a shade of brown and decided to do because there's 2 different bear images in the set. So I decided to do each bear of the same color just to kind of save me the effort. So I went in and did, my first layer with this one shade of brown, and then mixed up a different shade of brown to do these other bears, and same thing, just applied my first layer with that shade of brown, and then the other bears would have been dry by this point. So then I can go back with a deeper shade of the same color and start adding in a little bit more, depth and dimension and shadows and whatnot. So I was just pretty much messing around at this point and just kind of adding color and seeing where it's all going to go. So kind of went in, added the dark area, and then I cleaned off my brush a bit so I could kind of pull that color out so I didn't have as harsh of lines, and did that with all of these. So I've super sped up all of this watercoloring here. I don't know in the end exactly how long it took me to watercolor these, only because I do get asked a lot. How long did this take? How long did it take to make the card, etc. 99% of the time, I do not pay attention. I don't even have a clock in my office here. Yeah, when I am working away making cards, I'm not usually timing myself, but especially when I'm doing things like this, like watercoloring backgrounds or doing different things, I tend to, zone out and just enjoy the process. Or other times I've got my kids in here running around and playing, and we're talking and doing different things. Or other times I am sitting and doing everything in spurts, like only doing a little bit at a time, or I'm doing it really late at night. So anyway, did all my watercoloring, let it dry completely, and then I got out my Copic Opaque white, which is just a very, very opaque white paint that I absolutely love, and I just put a little bit of that onto an acrylic block and then watered it down a bit so that I could drag my brush across the edge of the acrylic block and create a fun splatter, because everything needs splatter. And then decided to also use that and just painted little reflective lines onto all these little jars of honey. And for this, I am using just one of my cheaper, crappier paintbrushes, just because this Copic Opaque white can easily wreck a brush if it's not cleaned out. So I never use that with my silver brushes because I don't want to risk wrecking them. And then same thing, I made sure everything was completely dry, and then I peeled off my painter's tape here because I had this taped to a piece of hardboard, which helped keep everything from warping. And then my original, again, intent was to stamp a sentiment and then trim it out with my paper trimmer. But this set has this fun little banner stamp, so I thought that would be really cute. So I stamped it onto black cardstock twice with some VersaMark ink. And then I used 2 different sentiments from the same set and inked those up and then stamped them inside each of these banners here. And then once I've got everything stamped, I'm going to coat it all with my Hero Arts white embossing powder over my little coffee filter here, and then I can melt this with my heat tool. And I decided to go with the black cardstock and the white heat embossing so that these would really pop against like the busyness of the background that I watercolored. So I melted that with my heat tool, and then I used the coordinating die set. There is a banner die in this set. So I used that to run this through my die cut machine twice to cut it out. And off camera, I had stamped another one of the bears onto just a scrap of the same watercolor paper and watercolored them in, and also trimmed that out with my paper trimmer, or with my die cut and Big Shot, so that I can use that to finish off the inside of the card. So once all that was done, I'm going to trim down this piece of watercolor paper so I can remove those edges that don't have any color on them. I had originally intended to do this like exactly a 4 bar size card, which is 3.5 by 4 7/8. But instead I decided to trim this down just a little bit so there'd be just a little bit of a border on this card. And I used some heavyweight white cardstock as my card base. And then to attach these banners, I decided to cut right along this one little bear's arm with one of my pen blades here, because these are super sharp. I still had to put in a fair bit of pressure because it's such thick watercolor paper. But I was able to cut that notch in there, and that way I could slip that banner kind of under his little arm there. And then I just used a bit of my Nuvo adhesive to adhere the top part of the banner so that it stays into place. And then I curled up the little end of it just a little bit with my fingers, just to give it that little extra something. And I was thinking about popping this onto the card base with foam tape, but in the end I just decided to adhere it flat to the card and keep this card really flat, easy for mailing. So adhered that into place with the same adhesive, and then for the inside of the card I did the same thing. I used my PenBlade and cut right along the bear's arm so that I could create a little notch to slip that second banner into. So just cut along the curve of him, and then I was able to push that second banner right underneath his arm there before I adhere this to the inside of the card. So it took a little bit of fiddling, push that in, and then I can apply the adhesive to the back of the bear and the back of the banner, and then adhere that to the inside of the card. And that finished off this card. I could have added some embellishments and little things. I thought about it, but decided to just leave this card as is, with all the watercoloring and a little bit of white splatter and then the banners. And yeah, that was it. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post, a link to all the supplies used. All that info will be in the description box below, so you guys can check that out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate the support, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!